Welcome to the Security Weekly News wrap-up for the week of 1 May 2022. We got Cuckoo Bees, Dental Bots, Password Day, Sheetjs, F5, and Vodka. All this and show wrap-ups on the Security Weekly News.
This is Security Weekly. For security professionals, by security professionals.
We interrupt our program to bring you this important message.
It's the show that keeps you up to date on the latest security news twice a week. Your trusted source for accurate security information and expert analysis. It's time for Security Weekly News. Cybercriminals are working overtime. Last year in the fourth quarter alone, phishing attacks disguised as COVID testing information increased by 521%. Barracuda has identified 13 types of email threats and how cybercriminals use them to steal money from your company or personal information from your employees and customers. Find out about the 13 email threat types and how Barracuda can provide complete email protection for your teams, your customers, and your reputation. Get your free ebook at securityweekly.com/Barracuda. That's securityweekly.com/Barracuda. Monitoring and maintaining compliance is a never-ending struggle with a high price of failure. FIREMON helps customers meet complex and varying compliance requirements. FIREMON has fully customizable reporting, analytics, assessments, and dashboards to meet the compliance needs of any organization. With FIREMON, compliance reports take a tenth of the time, and real-time continuous compliance eliminates the anxiety and headaches of audit preparation. Improve security outcomes by improving security operations with FIREMON. Visit securityweekly.com/FIREMON to learn more.
All right, I'm Doug White, and this is the Security Weekly News wrap-up show, episode 210. Wow. On Application Security Weekly, number 195, John and Mike had Lynn Marks, the product manager at Imperva. Lynn was on to talk about bad bots and how bad bots accounted for 27.7% of global website traffic in 2021. So, they basically talked about bots and the risk that bots create for your enterprise, as well as some Imperva products that detect bots and so forth. But, that's a lot of bot traffic, but it's not surprising. And, that's the gateway to Skynet, right? In the second segment, the AppSec News. On Business Security Weekly number 261, Ben, Jason, and Matt had Dave Klein on the show. The segment was about how to evaluate if your security tools are actually effective, which is a pretty good question. I think we really should be asking that question a lot, because a lot of these tools are quite expensive, and how do we, determine ROI and all these kind of things about them? I've been asked that question before, and, somebody says, should we drop $100,000 on this appliance? And you're going, I'm not sure. And, of course, if you ask the company, of course it's worth it. In the second segment, the Business Security News. On Enterprise Security Weekly 272, Adrian, Katie, and Lee had Prasad Baliga, a senior security consultant at Palo Alto, on the show. Prasad was on to talk about how security automation is going to be an absolute necessity. It was just something a lot of us have said in the past. It's not the only thing, but it's going to be a component of the security, your security posture, because essentially, due to the large number of incidents and the constraints of budget and so forth, we're never going to have enough people. We're never going to have enough eyeballs to actually evaluate the immense. Imagine trying to evaluate 27% of all net traffic is bots. That would be a bit. They did talk about security orchestration, automation, and response approaches. That's of course where multiple tools are being managed by a centralized resource. And I do think all that is a way forward, is to create those kind of centralized environments where all of your security tools are available in that model. But I do think that automation is going to be an it's always been, necessary. There's no way anybody can go through all those logs. And of course, that's a great application of neural nets and machine learning and other kinds of approaches, is to learn about how those things work. In the second segment, Ryan Fried, the senior security engineer at Brooks Running, joined that show, and they were then talking about how you get value from these same kind of systems, these SOAR systems, and how to focus on orchestration and response. In the third segment, Enterprise Security News. On Security Weekly News number 209, Jason Wood talked about a botnet. So it was like the week of bots or something. But Jason was talking about a botnet that uses Quiet Exit to run on various devices. And Quiet Exit, of course, is a big deal that involved Pegasus and so forth. But this particular botnet was just, the story was about how this organization used their botnet to just slowly burrow into the victim's network for about 18 months, like a guinea worm. don't look up guinea worm. You'll be sorry if you look up guinea worm. Really, I'm not kidding. On Paul's Security Weekly, number 739, first up was Fadi Karayumak, who's a friend of mine, and I can't say his name, but Fadi is a cyber risk lead at a large insurance company. Fadi was on to talk about ICS risk. He sort of specializes in that, and so it was a really, really good segment about ICS risks and research-based approaches to evaluation of risk in cyber industry. A lot of talk about insurance, cyber insurance, and things like that. So a pretty cool segment, and Fadi's a really smart guy, and so check that out if you missed it. In the new format of Paul's Security Weekly, there's only 2 segments going forward. So segment 2 was the security news, which, because there was more time, included a whole lot of talk about Star Wars, since it was the 4th of May and all, and Paul had all of his Star Wars gear out here on the table. So, he had his lightsabers, including a broken lightsaber. And yeah, it was, there was a whole lot of Star Wars stuff. It's the 4th of May. My threat of the week is going to be convenience. I mean, if everybody just stayed in their caves and they left everybody else alone, things would be pretty safe, right? I mean, Thag doesn't try to mess with my rocks and filth, and I don't try to mess with Thag's rocks and filth, and, so we just sort of leave each other alone and everything's fine. Now, the minute somebody says, well, if we shared this filth, it would be more efficient, well, that's when things start to go south, right? I mean, because security is always going to be a trade-off between being isolated and safe and convenience, because the minute you start sharing things, and this was, if you're just a desktop computer sitting on your desk at home and it's not connected to anything, it's pretty safe. But the minute you start downloading things, the minute you start taking floppy disks from somebody that loaned you and putting them in the machine, everything starts to go south. So, I mean, if the whole world had no locks, no passwords, no keys, no nothing, and we just all pile all our wealth and resources in a big heap and everybody takes what they need, well, that sure sounds like a good idea until somebody decides they get to make rules or take more than their share, and then I decide, well, maybe I'll just go over there with a big tree branch and bust some heads, and then, that's basically all of human history at that point. So this story that I attached was about how you can now embed Python code directly in HTML tags, which immediately has both like a "ooh, cool" and then "oh no" kind of effect on me. I mean, it's a very convenient thing to be able to do, but it's going to open up a whole new can of virtual whoop ass, by putting all the source code back on the page. I mean, like it used to be, right? And you could do view source, and it was like, ooh, look at this. I mean, it's certainly, when we talked about this on Security Weekly as well, but it's certainly no worse than JavaScript. I mean, because my immediate reaction was, oh no, I mean, I love Python, but like, oh no, Python's going to be on web pages. I think that can't be good. But, I mean, that's what JavaScript does. And it's definitely better than JavaScript because it's Python, right? But I mean, but now every new vector is just another chance that somebody's going to get hurt. So I'm not a Luddite. And I really thought, wouldn't it be a lot easier to put things in browser windows since I can just tag it in? So that part's cool. And I can use the browser as my operational window and all those kind of things. But it does mean that bad code and insecure code, along with any kind of secrets that people put in the code, not that that's ever a good idea, but, that old view source code button is just going to pop right back up like in 1999. And I'm not opposed to this tag, mind you, at all. But this kind of convenience, I think, means that we definitely have to take great care that as you design sites and you say, wow, cool, now I can write all this Python code on my page, make sure that you include that security, the security dev function to make sure we don't have developers putting hard-coded passwords in Python like they used to do all the time and other, other languages. Likewise, I think the potential for abuse is high, but convenience does rule the day. So PyScript will allow you to put an HTML tag in, and then you can put all the Python code you want right there on the page and let it execute. So that's great. It's going to make a lot of things easier. It's going to give a lot more functionality to various and sundry things, and it means you can write all kinds of code in a web page. But if you're like me and you don't really like or know JavaScript and you do like and know Python, well, that gives you that opportunity. So you can put the tags in, add the code, cool. But watch out, because that also means there's all kinds of new vectors for injections, as well as your source code being visible to everybody who looks at the page. Because if you assume people don't know how to click the view source button, boy, are you naive. So, I mean, I just got, in the habit probably in the last 2 years of not opening view source on just about everything to see if there was anything interesting there. And it had pretty much gone away. But that may well bring it back. Obviously, there's other approaches to this, and there's probably going to be encrypted ways to deal with some of this. I don't know, maybe not, but regardless, it's definitely an interesting paper about how to do this if you're interested. I mean, the tags already exist, so if you want to put Python on a web page and run it in a browser, there you go. You can do it. And now the news. The open source project Sheetjs, which is also called XLSX, which was how I had heard of it. I didn't actually know Sheetjs, but I knew XLSX. They actually dropped support for NPM. So XLSX is downloaded about 1.4 million times a week on NPM, literally. I mean, it's a very, very popular thing. And what it's used for is it's used for Node.js, so the JavaScript tool, to parse Excel spreadsheets. You can actually build Excel spreadsheets and or parse them out using JavaScript. So, what happened? I mean, why this big move away from NPM? Well, if you read the article, it's not exactly clear. There were speculations that it's a precursor to some kind of legal action by Sheetjs, which is the company that supports this. It is an open source product, so basically, they can do whatever they want. But there was some speculation that there was going to be legal action against GitHub by Sheetjs and so forth over other matters. But the argument cited was that NPM has started requiring two-factor authentication. And the claim from Sheetjs was that GitHub's abrupt decision-making and ongoing legal matters between Sheetjs and NPM have caused issues for the company. So on the 14th of April, Sheetjs changed their code to remove any NPM dependencies and all URL references to NPM's domains within the source code. And they updated all this to Sheetjs CDN, so future versions of the code are going to be all released there at cdn.sheetjs.com. So if you do have products that are using this stuff, you may want to actually consider in your security side monitoring updating some of this information to make sure you're reflecting the way it's running now, because if you're still detecting on the other side, it may cause some problems. Apparently, though, based on common sense and last year's compromises, GitHub announced that they would require two-factor authentication to be used, but then they went on and they did something weird. They said only on the top 100 NPM packages. So that's a little arbitrary, in my opinion. If you need it, I mean, it's just like, let's just pick these top 100 people who are the most powerful people with the most leverage, and let's target them. Not that I don't think they should require two-factor, mind you. Sheetjs did not want to cooperate, so they left. I mean, they basically said, that's it. No, we're out. Now, it did start to sound like maybe this was just an excuse, but Sheetjs says that other actions by GitHub, such as shutting down its git.io URL redirection service with only 4 days notice to developers and so forth, added to their reasons for departure. And it is a world of open source and anything can happen. But if you read the article, you'll see later, and I didn't really document all this because I don't like to document speculation, but several people were speculating that there's other legal actions forthcoming. And so they wanted to break all ties. F5 is back in the news. If you remember a couple of years ago, F5 went through a whole cycle of, it seemed like every week I was talking about them. But now they have issued a security advisory warning about a flaw that would allow unauthenticated attackers with network access to execute arbitrary system commands, manipulate files, and disable services on their big IP devices. The exploit is a 9.8 severity, and it can lead to a complete system takeover. The flaw is in the iControl REST component, which involves authentication, and it would allow the attacker to send requests to bypass the authentication mechanism in big IP devices. CISA issued an alert on the matter, so if you're using these and you subscribe, you probably already got alerted. F5 has introduced fixes in most of the current products, but said they would not be patching branches of 12.x and 11.x, which those are pretty old. But you may still be using those, right? So you definitely just take 5 and go check your systems and make sure if you're using big IP stuff. The advisory does clarify that Big IQ centralized management, F5 OS-A, F5 OS-C, and Traffic SDC are not impacted by this flaw. There are some mitigations provided in the advisory if you're not able to patch for some reason, and the issue apparently impacts more than 16,000 devices worldwide, per Shodan scans. So if you're using this, you definitely should take a moment. We can wait. No, I'm kidding. But yeah, seriously. Google Docs has an issue that sounds like something from a long time ago as well, if we're on historical stuff today. Apparently, if you type a specific series of words into a document, well, that document then may be toast. So Bleeping Computers said they were able to reproduce this issue, and I actually tried it, and yeah, it did work. Basically, they were advised by Google that Google was working on a fix for this problem. So apparently what happens is if you have grammar checking turned on and you type and, so 5 times, it has to have a capital A. Like, who figured this out? But we used to see these kind of things all the time, right? People would find these old weird things that cause problems. Somebody figured this out. So somebody typed and period, and period, and period, and period, and period, all with capital A's. And when they did that, and grammar suggestion was turned on, it basically crashed the document. Now, I don't know if the person was trying to write while under the influence or something like that. I mean, I don't know any reason on earth you would type this, maybe in a novel or something, you would type this intentionally, but it seems very stylized. But the bug could be reproduced. I mean, I even did it. Other researchers have now claimed that if you do it with 5 buts, and I'm not going there, with capital B's and so forth, not with 2 T's, mind you, although that might work too. Apparently, all sorts of things that have 5 words that start with a capital letter and are terminated with a period work. And I didn't spend a lot of time on it, and I don't think Bleeping Computer did either. But if you want to, feel free. And you can even write a script maybe to generate all kinds of different things. Maybe it works on any set of words like that. But anyway, once you put that in the document, it crashes, and when you try to reopen the document, it basically won't reopen. It says, cannot open this document. So apparently you can, however, if you've done this, and you're like, oops, I did this on my dissertation. Oh, that's not good, and I don't have a backup. I keep expecting to get those calls today. But apparently if you open it in the Google mobile app, and then you can remove the phrases and turn off this grammar checking, you can then reopen it on the browser. But meanwhile, don't leave your paper open while you go to the bathroom during finals week, because, that's like middle school attack number 5 is like somebody jumps on your machine and types this into your document and then crashes it. Yeah, wouldn't that be fun? Well, much like here at Security Weekly, Russia depends on alcohol to function. Whether it's that early morning wake-up shot of tequila, the post-wake-up Bloody Mary with Valentina Extra Hot, or just the old second breakfast Irish coffee, maybe we have a problem. I'm not sure, but anyway, hacktivists working for the Ukrainian IT army, if you recall, the Ukrainian government invited anyone in the world who wanted to join their IT army. They have been focused on distributed denial of service attacks on a portal that apparently represents a critical supply chain point in the distribution of alcohol in Russia. And I mean, I've been to Russia. It's a cool place. I really liked it. They had great food and very nice people. Until they start invading, other countries, which is not cool. But most of the Russians, I don't think, are really that into that. But much like the United States, the Russian government likes to keep their hands on the old alcohol tiller, because guess what you can do for alcohol? You can tax it, you can control it, and if you regulate alcohol, you regulate everything, right? Because, the federal government can come in and go, if you don't do this, we're not going to let you sell alcohol anymore. And then, that's how people get out the pitchforks and torches, right? But anyway, the EGAIS portal is a required place that you have to use, like a lot of U.S. government type stuff as well, to produce, distribute, etc., alcohol in Russia. So you have to use these portals in order to, I guess, get permits and whatever else, stamps, or I don't really know how alcohol distribution works in Russia. When I was there, it was just like here, and I was like, hi, I'd like 9 shots of vodka and some caviar, please. But they do have good vodka. I mean, without it, and I don't even like vodka, but I mean, if you're in Russia, you kind of have to drink vodka, right? I mean, come on. But of course, now you can't really visit Russia anymore. Thanks, Mr. Putin. So I tried going to egais.ru this morning, and I did get a timeout error, and I probably got put on the no-fly list forever for trying to go there, but it did appear to be down. So keep up the good works, folks. Russians, go home. Go home and drink vodka. I mean, I really think that would be a good idea. And then everybody can get back to drinking in peace. And the Ukrainians can drink Ukrainian vodka, and the Russians can drink Russian vodka. We can all drink Ukrainian and Russian vodka again. Polish vodka, also good. Czech vodka, also good. Yeah. So yesterday was apparently World Password Day. I did not get my invitation in the mail, Mr. Biden, so it must be lost or something like that. I'll keep watching for it. But anyway, in celebration of World Password Day, apparently there's some kind of World Day for almost every day of the year now. But in celebration of this, Apple, Google, and Microsoft announced a joint effort to kill the password once and for all. Good luck with that. Basically, what they're advocating for is no password sign-in, and they want to use the approach that was advocated by the FIDO Alliance and the World Wide Web Consortium. So basically, what this is it's the multi-device FIDO credential or passkey, and the way it works is that when you need to sign into anything, pretty much on a system, what happens is a Bluetooth, so underline that twice, a Bluetooth request, because there's never been any security problems with Bluetooth, but a Bluetooth request is sent to a mobile device. It has to be in close proximity to the other device, and that is going to authenticate the user who enters a biometric, like a fingerprint or even a facial scan or a PIN number into the device, very much like two-factor approaches that we all pretty much use all the time with authenticator apps, out in the world. Now, unlike other systems which we have seen in use that require local internet connections or Wi-Fi or something like that, this one is using Bluetooth. So it literally, you have to be close enough for Bluetooth to detect your device, and I would presume that means that the other side of the device has to have Bluetooth on it as well. I didn't say anything about whether they had other pipelines for that. But I mean, I have been saying we need to get rid of passwords for a long time. I've been saying that probably since the 1980s because I've password stuffing or credential stuffing and password spraying has been a thing as long as there have been computer systems. I'm sure way back when, Grace Hopper and people were like talking about this. But I'm not sure what happens when you lose your phone and you need to access something. But honestly, I mean, aren't we just like months away from total dependence on mobile devices, anyway, and we'll be, celebrating our new mobile overlords. Anyway, Apple has this system up and running currently in iOS 15 and in Mac OS Monterey. And Google and Microsoft are planning to roll this out over the coming year, it said. I don't know if that means 2022 or 2023, but I'm not sure. But, does your desktop support Bluetooth? Does every device on Earth support Bluetooth? I mean, mine does, so I guess we'll find out what other devices don't. And don't lose your phone. I mean, honestly, I believe passwords I'll believe it when passwords are actually gone, and I don't see that happening anytime soon. But it is a step forward, and the FIDO Alliance does have a pretty good model for this. So maybe one day we can get away from this. So Operation Cuckoo Bees, like, who names these things? Eyeball McSqueezy, right? That's my name for Microsoft. Operation Cuckoo Bees was discovered and named by Cybereason, who has a much more sane name for their company, but they called it Operation Cuckoo Bees. So okay, if you find it, you get to name it. Anyway, I mean, I like the name. The operation is being attributed with, as they said, a high degree of confidence to WinNTI, who is also called Apt41, which is also called Barium, and also called Blackfly. So, I guess lots of people got to name this. But WinNTI is attributed with a high degree of confidence to the People's Republic of China. Anyway, WinNTI is a group that uses multiple malware strains and builds fairly sophisticated attacks. Cybereason says that they start by typically finding an ERP product that has multiple vulnerabilities, some of which may not be public yet, so they may find their own 0 days and use them. So it sounds like how NSA operates and other government nation-state type groups. And then once they do that, they begin injecting payloads into the VMware service host.exe files. And if that's done, it allows them to install shells and cred dumping tools and all kinds of things. The report says that Operation Cuckoo Bees started in 2019 and remained undetected until 2021. So definitely sounds like a nation state to me, because they have that level of control, where they don't just go nuts and get discovered very quickly. And it says they've probably been collecting data since then. The analysis was shared with the FBI. It's definitely worth a read if you're interested in such things. It definitely sounds like Chinese approaches to exfiltrating information and product designs and anything else that they want to steal, and they definitely stayed below the radar for a long, long time. So an interesting report from Cyber Reason. And finally, I saw a couple of stories this week about neural nets being used to detect cavities in your teeth. And I did a quick search. Now, I didn't put all the links to all those different articles because you may not care that much, but I did put in a link to an article called DentNet, Deep Neural Transfer Network for the Detection of Periodontal Bone Loss Using Panoramic Dental Radiographs. Nobody can name stuff like academics, let me tell you. I mean, they don't have marketing departments, so they just get to name it whatever the academics would have called. But it's a pretty accurate name. And yes, it's an academic paper. But, basically when I think of AI medicine, I always go back to that. You remember the surgeon in Logan's Run? There was like this surgery clinic where you could get like plastic surgery done, and it was done by a robotic surgeon. Very forward thinking for the 70s. It was the one that went berserk and chopped up poor old Holly, who was played by Farrah Fawcett, mind you. And poor old Holly got chopped up into decorative ribbons. Yeah, that. But regardless, I do think this is a really good use for AI. I mean, can you train a neural net to identify a type of cat by looking at cat pictures? Yep. And can you make it look at lots and lots of cat pictures and figure out all kinds of things? Yep. So obviously it could look at lots and lots of boring dental x-rays and find bad things really quickly, which makes a lot of sense. I mean, that's what neural nets are for. And I mean, the neural net in this paper actually outscored they did a test. They had dental techs looking at test data, and they had the neural net looking at test data, and it outscored the dental techs on the test set. Not grossly outscored them, but it did outscore them. Now, I will tell you, I wrote a punk rock neural net. I was fiddling with it using Bot Libre, and here's what my punk rock neural net said when I said I want to, because it's supposed to write song lyrics. It said, "I are go to quatra crapik hola woo wish ludi hat woma." And I thought, well, it doesn't really work, but I realized that this is more punk rock than all of the punk rock Cramps lyrics and Lou Reed lyrics and Germs lyrics that I fed the poor thing. Anyway, that's a wrap for the week of 1 May 2022. I'm Doug White. I'll see you next week on Security Weekly News.